It is the winter of the year 800 CE. Inside the Grand Basilica of St. Peter's in Rome, the air is heavy with incense, candlelight flickers on marble columns, and the soft murmur of Latin prayers echoes through the sacred space. Kneeling before Pope Leo III is Charlemagne, Charles the Great, King of the Franks, ruler of a vast territory stretching from the Pyrenees to the Elbe, from the North Sea to central Italy. For decades, Charlemagne's military campaigns have expanded his realm, subduing Saxons, Lombards, and Avars, while forging an empire unparalleled in Western Europe since the fall of Rome. On Christmas Day, as the faithful gather in solemn anticipation, the Pope crowns Charlemagne Imperator Romanorum, Emperor of the Romans, a title not claimed in the West for over 3 centuries. The act is both deeply symbolic and politically revolutionary. The Roman Empire had fallen centuries earlier, leaving Europe fragmented. Yet this moment marks the rebirth of a dream, a Christian empire uniting faith, culture, and politics under one sovereign. But this empire is not truly Roman. Its heart lies in Aachen, not Rome. Its people speak Frankish, Latin, and countless local dialects. It is also not entirely holy, for its power is built on conquest as much as faith. And it is not yet a centralized empire in the Roman sense, but a loose confederation of territories, each ruled by its own laws and customs. After Charlemagne's death in 814, his empire fractures under his heirs. The Treaty of Verdun in 843 divides the realm among his grandsons, creating 3 kingdoms that lay the foundations of modern France, Germany, and Italy. Yet the imperial title lingers, passing to rulers of the Eastern Frankish kingdom, who inherit not only Charlemagne's legacy, but also the Pope's blessing. By the 10th century under Otto I, this imperial tradition solidifies. Otto defeats the Magyars at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955, securing his rule and earning the crown of emperor in 962. This marks the true beginning of what we now call the Holy Roman Empire. But Otto's empire is already complex. It is a mosaic of duchies, bishoprics, and cities, united less by law and more by ceremony, faith, and mutual obligation. The empire's holy nature stems from its alliance with the Church. Popes crown emperors, emperors protect popes, yet this partnership is fraught with tension. Behind every coronation lies a struggle. Who holds ultimate authority, the spiritual leader in Rome or the secular emperor in Aachen? Thus, the Holy Roman Empire begins its 1,000-year story not as a unified kingdom, but as a grand experiment in balancing divine authority, noble power, and imperial ambition. It is a puzzle from its birth, one that will grow only more intricate with time. By the High Middle Ages, the Holy Roman Empire had become one of the most fascinating and confusing political systems in history. Unlike France or England, which evolved into centralized kingdoms, the empire sprawled across Central Europe like a mosaic, a realm not of a single crown, but of hundreds of rulers, dukes, bishops, abbots, free cities, and counts, each jealously guarding their autonomy. The emperor stood at the apex of this hierarchy, yet his authority was anything but absolute. His power came not only from armies or wealth, but from his ability to navigate a labyrinth of alliances, feudal obligations, and church politics. By the 13th century, this structure was codified through an extraordinary document, the Golden Bull of 1356. Issued by Emperor Charles VI, it formalized a unique system of governance. 7 powerful prince-electors were given the exclusive right to choose the emperor. These electors were not just any nobles. They included 3 archbishops of Mainz, Cologne, and Trier, representing the spiritual authority of the church, and 4 secular rulers, the King of Bohemia, the Elector of Saxony, the Elector of Brandenburg, and the Count Palatine of the Rhine. Together, they formed a council of kingmakers whose influence shaped the destiny of the empire for centuries. The Golden Bull also defined intricate ceremonial practices. It established Aachen as the official coronation site, standardized imperial seals, and even dictated the order of processions at court. The empire became a theater of power where ceremony carried as much weight as armies. But this decentralization had consequences. While emperors like Frederick II sought to centralize power, many emperors were forced to compromise, granting privileges to local rulers in exchange for support. Over time, these concessions created a patchwork empire, over 300 individual states, each with its own laws, languages, and armies. The empire's governance was like an elaborate clockwork, electors choosing emperors, diets, or Reichstag debating policies, cities asserting their autonomy, and bishops wielding both spiritual and temporal power. It was not a monolithic empire but a political ecosystem, a living network of overlapping authorities. This structure baffled foreign observers. The French philosopher Voltaire famously remarked, "This body which is called, and which still calls itself the Holy Roman Empire was in no way holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. Yet its complexity was its strength. The empire endured for centuries because no single ruler could dominate completely. Its balance of power kept it from collapsing into tyranny, while its traditions of negotiation foreshadowed modern European diplomacy." In this chapter we step inside this intricate machine. The courts of electors, the imperial diet, and the glittering yet fragile world of medieval German politics. The 16th century brings a storm that will forever change Europe, a storm born not from invading armies but from words written on a church door. In 1517, Martin Luther, an Augustinian monk from Saxony, pens 95 theses challenging the corruption and authority of the Catholic Church. He nails them to the door of the castle church in Wittenberg, sparking a revolution. What begins as a call for reform quickly grows into a movement that shatters Christendom. Within decades, the Holy Roman Empire, already a patchwork of political powers, is now a patchwork of faiths. Protestant princes embrace Lutheranism, Calvinism, and other Reformed doctrines, while Catholic rulers fight to preserve tradition. Emperors like Charles V, the Habsburg monarch whose empire stretches from Spain to the Americas, see themselves as defenders of the faith. But even he cannot hold back the tide of religious change. The empire fractures further. The Peace of Augsburg in 1555 attempts compromise. Each prince can choose their territory's religion, Catholicism or Lutheranism. Yet this cuius regio, eius religio, only deepens divisions, entrenching a Europe defined by confessional borders. By the early 17th century, tensions explode into one of history's most devastating conflicts, the 30 Years' War. It begins in 1618 with an act of rebellion in Prague, the famous defenestration, where Protestant nobles hurl Catholic officials from a castle window. This seemingly small act ignites a war that draws in nearly every major European power. For 3 decades, armies ravage the empire. German towns are burned, fields laid waste, and millions perish from famine and disease. The conflict evolves from a religious war into a struggle for political dominance, with France, Sweden, and Spain all vying for power. The devastation is almost unimaginable. Some German regions lose half their population. Entire cities are reduced to rubble. The empire, already fragile, becomes a battlefield for the ambitions of others. Finally, in 1648, the Peace of Westphalia brings an end to the carnage. But this peace changes everything. It formally recognizes the sovereignty of over 300 states, enshrining the decentralization of the empire. For the first time, religion is officially treated as a matter of state choice rather than imperial decree. The Holy Roman Empire emerges from this crucible not stronger, but transformed, a loose federation rather than a unified power. Diplomacy replaces conquest as the empire's lifeblood, and the seeds of the modern nation-state system are sown. From Wittenberg's church door to the signing tables of Westphalia, the empire's story in this era is one of chaos, faith, and survival. By the 18th century, the Holy Roman Empire was an empire in name only. Once a symbol of Christian unity, it had become a sprawling federation of more than 300 semi-independent states, powerful kingdoms like Prussia and Bavaria, rich bishoprics, independent city-states, and tiny principalities. The emperor, always a Habsburg by this era, held prestige but little direct power. Vienna's imperial court was a glittering stage of ceremony and tradition, but real authority lay scattered across Europe. The empire's decentralized structure, once a source of resilience, now made it slow, unwieldy, and vulnerable to rising powers. By the mid-18th century, Prussia under Frederick the Great and Austria under Maria Theresa waged wars that weakened the empire's unity. The 7 Years' War, 1756 and 1763, further exposed the cracks, as the empire became a battleground for European superpowers. And then came Napoleon Bonaparte. The French Revolution had toppled monarchies and rewritten the political order of Europe. Napoleon, a military genius, conquered much of Western and Central Europe in a whirlwind of campaigns. In 1805, his army crushed Austrian forces at the Battle of Austerlitz, shattering Habsburg hopes of preserving imperial authority. By 1806, Napoleon's Confederation of the Rhine absorbed many German states, leaving Emperor Francis II with no choice but to abdicate. On August 6, 1806, he formally dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, ending a political entity that had lasted for over a millennium. But the empire's story didn't end there. Its legacy lived on in Europe's political and cultural fabric. Its decentralized structure foreshadowed modern federal systems. Its diplomatic culture, especially after the Peace of Westphalia, shaped international law. Its cities, churches, and castles remain icons of medieval and Renaissance Europe. Though Voltaire once mocked it as neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, its thousand-year history shaped Germany, Austria, and much of Central Europe. Today, its memory endures not as a symbol of absolute power, but as a reminder of compromise, diversity, and resilience. An empire that somehow managed to survive for centuries not through dominance, but through negotiation and adaptation. As we leave behind this intricate, misunderstood empire, we see not just its collapse, but its transformation into something new, the seeds of the modern European order. Thank you for watching the Random Fact Factory. If you enjoyed this journey through history, subscribe for more deep dives into the past, myths, and mysteries that shaped our world. Until next time, keep exploring.